Espresso. Ah, what a peaceful evening. Just me and a lonely cricket, pondering life's many questions, such as who put the bomb and the bomb. Coming up on Espresso Coffee Talk, it's going to be us caught up in the air with the Rapture people going, whoa. Hey, did anybody see the mark? What the heck was it? I missed it.
Oh my God! I want to see how it turns out. Oh, come on! Yes. Like, dang it. Yes.
Oh, that's beautiful. The following episode is sponsored by viewers like yourself. If you would like to sponsor or donate, please visit ExpressoCoffeeTalk.com. That's XPRESSO CoffeeTalk.com.
Oh, for the love. Don't you ever get tired asking for money?
Welcome back to Espresso Coffee Talk. I am excited. We finally got the website, ExpressoCoffeeTalk.com, up. It's live. I've been working on it. I'm excited about what's already there. I'm excited about what's to come at ExpressoCoffeeTalk.com. So go check it out, XPRESSOCoffeeTalk.com. Check back often because there are some things that are coming again. But anyway, go check it out. See what you think. Let me know. Give me some feedback. Also, you can find me on Facebook now. So Espresso Coffee Talk on Facebook. I would love to see you there. Hook up and see what we can do. So recently I sat down with Dan and we talked about the man of lawlessness that the Bible talks about and the mark of the beast. And basically, what does that look like? And so this is what we came up with. This conversation sort of brings back, for me, it's going to bring back a lot of what we've already talked about in past episodes. So I'm going to encourage the listeners to go back and listen to past episodes, just to kind of get an idea of the platform or the foundation that we've sort of laid so far in our studies on this podcast. So going back, I mean, we've talked about anything from was the earth the final destination point? Was that the pinnacle of things? We've talked about angelic beings. We've talked about Satan, the accuser. Was he an angel of light? Was he not an angel of light? What all of this stuff, this idea of spiritual realms and interdimensional stuff, and so kind of culminating in this topic here. And I want to go into that a little bit as we discuss who the man of lawlessness could potentially be, or who he could potentially not be. So, a lot of different things over the past. I don't know what I'm sure you've heard different names been tossed around as far as who the man of lawlessness could potentially be, or could have been.
Oh, yes. It was from the past, Nero, to the Roman Empire, to other emperors that came up. We had one time where we thought, well, maybe it is a demon, but it kind of doesn't fit the flow-ish. And then people have always tried to pigeonhole this one. It's got to be this person. But they thought it was the Nazi Party, Hitler. So anybody who kind of pops up, people, oh, that's him. They want to pigeonhole somebody because we see them being so evil. This has got to be them. I've even heard that it's the Muslim empire due to the fact of the Dome of the Rock sitting on the temple grounds. That this is, or that was when that was put on there. This is the abomination of desolation that's happened. That's what I've heard.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I've heard some, absolutely that. I've heard, obviously every president that nobody likes, they go into that as if this is all centered around the United States. Then I've heard it's the Pope. I've heard the Catholic Church. Oh,
yes, I heard. Yes.
So all going down all that realm. So I guess it would be advantageous to go back and say, what are some elements of the man of lawlessness according to Scripture? And the first one, I don't know of any place it mentions in the Old Testament except Daniel.
Yeah, Daniel seems to be the one, other than Revelation has some. Daniel seems to be a center point of this abomination coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of covers over his, as he's having this vision,
Mm-hmm.
that becomes a strong point within his book. I guess on your end of it, because you're, probably a little more versed in it than I am. I was at one time, but it's like, oh gosh, I've lost track of when it comes to that thread of this man of lawlessness and an antichrist.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it comes down to where does your, view go on this?
Right. So when I've done studies on Daniel, used to go and it's not hard to get some of the information now as to, who are the players, what's happening there, and kind of like these. And Daniel 7 is the one I'm thinking of. Daniel 7 kind of really brings about this guy. But Daniel 7 has like 4 beasts, and when you start to study that, and you kind of, again, we said it last week, Scripture has to interpret Scripture. They have to back it up. So Daniel, even within his own visions or with his own dreams, he has to interpret somebody else's dream of a statue, and then it's like he gets the same thing only in beast form, animal form. And so he has to sort of navigate who these beasts are. And by the 4th beast, it says that there's a kingdom that comes out of it. And, 10 horns. This beast has 10 horns, and it says out of these kings will arise another one. And he will be different from the previous ones, and it says he will subdue 3 kings. Now, I'm going to stop there to tell you that I've heard, this is where the Catholic Church stuff comes in, because I've heard, being that the 4th beast is most likely Rome, that this beast comes out, or this king or whoever comes out of it, and he subdues 3 kings. And there's a whole history behind that, saying, to be able to say that it could be the Pope. I've read it. It's definitely intriguing, and I would encourage people to just look it up and see what they think. I'm not going to dive too much into it, just because it's just a theory, and it's not. I mean, you could take it down. I'm not going to claim to have the answer here. I just want to put the information out. So.
Yeah, and when I was in college, this was what you just said. This was a major point. It's the Catholic Church.
Yeah,
I think that view has changed over the years. But yeah, when I first went to school, the church I was involved in said this leans towards the Pope of the Catholic Church. Mm-hmm. So I forgot about that. I went, oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, at one time, yeah, it's that. I don't think they follow that view anymore. I'm not sure. But yeah, that was a strong point. And part of this, when you were talking about Daniel, the symbology, how it's seen, and this is where I get to wonder once in a while whether this being has either come already or it's in the past. I don't know. Because Daniel gets into that. He calls them the abomination that causes desolation. Mm-hmm. And that's what he gets into. Mm-hmm. But it talks about the same time the ending of sacrifice and all that. Well, that's happened a long time ago, because mm-hmm. Israel has not been able to get into the sacrificial system for over 2,000 years, mm-hmm. because their temple's no longer there. So, this for me leans towards the past part of it.
Yeah. So the last time I studied Daniel, I'm going to go, and then I'll come back to my original thought here. But, for me, what I realized in the whole book was that sort of the climactic chapter of Daniel was chapter 9. And I think that because you and I, we talk about all the time keeping scripture in context. If you take it out of context, you can run with it and go wherever you want. But when you're putting it in context, then, you know, that's the story that it paints. That's the story you need to go with. So in context, Daniel's on his knees, he's praying, and he's read Jeremiah, and he has seen that God promised Jeremiah a desolation of the land for 70 years, and that people would be exiled out or whatever. And then after 70 years, if they would cry out to him, he would hear their cry, and then he would bring them back into the land. So Daniel's on his knees, and he's praying, and he's, you know, repenting and doing all this stuff. And it says in verse 20, while I was speaking and praying, confessing my sin of the people, and presenting my supplication for the Lord, the holy mountain of my God, while I was still speaking in prayer, the man Gabriel, whom I had seen in the vision previously, came to me in my extreme weariness about the time of the evening offering. He gave me instruction and talked with me and said, Daniel, I've come forth to give you insight and understanding. At the beginning of your supplications, a command was issued, and I've come to tell you, for you are highly esteemed. So give heed to the message and gain understanding. So now, remember, he's praying about coming back into the land. That's the whole goal of this prayer, or of this whole thing, is for him to go, I'm wanting to know about, you know, 70 years are about up. What's shaking here? Let's get back into the land. That was the promise. So then he goes on, and everything we talk about, what you talked about already, is he talks about the city being rebuilt. He talks about the Messiah who comes and gets cut off, and he talks about a prince who will come and destroy the city, and then talks about the cutting off of sacrifice, and then on the wing of abominations, somebody who makes desolate. And in that, is that the one? No. But then a little bit later on, I think it's maybe 10 or 11. I think that there's a abomination of desolation or whatever that gets set up. I think you find out about that in 10. But the whole context is he's wanting to know about the people, the Jewish people, getting back into the land, which tells you that this whole thing is really about that promise of people coming back into the land, and not just after 70 years, but like what's going to happen to the people all the way around. And that's what Gabriel tells him. I'm going to tell you what happens to your people in the long run. This isn't just about 70-year desolation. This is a bigger picture prophecy now, and you're going to get a little bit more than you chewed up or you bargained for. So Daniel's in this whole thing, and now he's beginning to understand that. So I go back and I'm in 7, and now I'm trying to figure, okay, if Daniel's all about, you know, Israel's the time clock here. I mean, I don't know if you've heard people say that, like Israel is sort of, when we're talking about end times.
Yeah, when it comes to that, that becomes the, like, I hate to say the ticking time bomb, but Israel's center focus on any part, whether it's Daniel, Revelation, Israel becomes the center point and the driving, because it comes back to, which we will get into, contracts that God set up a covenant with Abraham and the nation of Israel, and that has not gone null and void. He has included Gentiles with it right now, but he has never forgot his promise to Israel. So Israel becomes a center point, and still is a center point because I hate to say Israel's not just his people, but he has become the God of that nation, right. And so it's a hammer pounded in that nail that Israel is the center point in a lot of, I mean, really in the prophetic languages of Daniel and Revelation. They become mostly the center point towards the end. And as they move and as things begin to happen, that's when you begin to see the end times begin to wrap up as this movement goes.
Right. So you brought up a valid point tonight, and again, it's something that we've talked about in the past, and that is the idea of, because when we did that episode about was Earth the final destination, one of the things, I think you were the one that said it, was there is obviously something about the land. We don't know what it is, but there's a constant battle about the land. And even in the end, they all come together and they battle over this land. So there's something there, contractually, covenantly, whatever. There is something there about this land. And I think that when you kind of keep that into perspective, then some of these other things you're going, okay, well, wait a minute. So like going back to Daniel 7, this guy, he speaks out against the Most High and wears down the saints of the highest one. And he will intend to make alterations in times and in law, and they will be given unto his hand for a time, times, and half a time. Okay, so why would this guy seek to alter times and laws? Let's keep, again, I'm keeping in the perspective that in the end, Israel obviously is the time clock, and something is, I mean, everything just funnels back to that covenant, that land.
Yes. Yeah, it comes down to that. I'm processing kind of what the question you had. It's a contractual agreement. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to get all into this tonight, but all the way through Scripture, there's contractual, contracts that God either establishes, just He promises it, no one has to follow through, like Noah and the rainbow. I will no longer ever flood the earth. So there's certain things God has set forward. I will not do this. Then there's contractual stuff. I'll do this if you do that. So all the way down through this, and when you get into Revelation, I believe if he's going to involve time and in a sense laws, it's the contractual stuff again. Mm-hmm. That whoever this being is trying to maneuver it so the contract bends towards his will. It's like going to court, having your lawyer sitting there, a defense lawyer and an attorney on the other side, making their case. Mm-hmm. And both will, a lot of times they know the law, but they'll bend it in the way they ask questions that kind of make it bend towards their, the way they want the decision to be eventually come out from the judge, the ultimate judge, or the jury. Mm-hmm. So I would see this gentleman or lady or whoever it is would try to bend those to his will to make that contract fit how he wants it to fit. Mm-hmm. I mean, for me, that's how I would see it. Okay.
I want to bring in a thought now, or inject a thought that we brought up in the episode on Satan. One thing that we said in that episode was that he has to, at least by what we read in Scripture, anyway, by what we read in anything about him, he has always had to operate within a certain boundary, and that boundary being whatever God says that he can or cannot do. So, yeah, go ahead and mess with Job, but you can't take his life. That, for example. So, with that in mind, here's this guy who's really pulling the strings. Is this a guy or a government, or is this like a spiritual type? Paul says that we're not fighting flesh and blood, we're fighting spiritual principalities and angelic beings or whatever. Is this what this is? Is a spiritual principality really pulling the strings? And if so, who's the ringleader?
Yeah. This is where your brain gets stirred up. Because you want it to make, when you get done at the end, you're going, we really want Revelation, all these prophetic things to line up 100%. It's very hard to do that. At least I have found. Some folks, again, when you get into Daniel, I've had churches take that timeline, 7 times this, and it's this many years, and there's 3.5 years of this, and there's 7 years of this. And I'm going, okay, guys, you're trying to make this so linear and so factual that then you think it'll fit. Through my understanding, you can't do that. So when it comes to let's take it this bent. Let's say it is a gentleman or a lady or somebody in power. I'm just going to take this bent. Let's say it is. It is a person who then does these abomination of desolation. Then who on the other side is controlling that? Well, then you would have the angelic beings that are bent on going the opposite direction than what God intended. Everyone, this comes down to, well, they're demons. I don't believe so. Not now. There was a time when I believed, it's a demonic force. No. I mean, we can go back, just kind of backing this up, but if you go to Daniel, and it gives you this flavor of Daniel 10, 13, when you have, is it Michael? Who's coming up to him?
Oh, Gabriel, I think.
Gabriel. I think it's Gabriel.
Yeah.
That he comes up and he wants to talk to him, and he says, but the prince of Persia's kingdom resisted me 21 days. Then Michael, one of the chief princes, came and helped me. These are angelic beings. These are principalities of the angelic realm who are battling with another angelic principality who stalled him, somehow was able to detain, and they had to get another one of the high-ranking seraphim to come and help because he was detained there. So in the midst of this, we're seeing these strings being pulled by governments, by angelic beings who are in power, and God has allowed them to do this. So is it, we always think, it's Satan has taken this person. Well, it could be. But it also could be a broader picture. It's all those angelic beings all tied together using all their might to go against the kingdom of God and his desires. So who's controlling this guy? It's got to be an angelic. Let's put it up this way. I'm going to go what Michael Heiser says. It's an Elohim. And an Elohim is pretty much anybody or any being beyond a physical body. It's people who are not part of this realm here. That's an Elohim. We always think, Elohim's God. Well, God uses that term along with other ones are called Elohims. Angels, principalities, good or bad. So in my estimation, and this has come mostly recent, is whoever this gentleman is or this person is aligning himself with those principalities that aren't aligned with God.
Right.
And he's somehow listening to them. They're guiding him. They're using him as is happening now in our world with different governments and different people. They're swaying and moving, and it's like a big chessboard. So they're moving pieces around, hoping to eventually get a checkmate. So that's my bet on it.
Yeah. So, and maybe that's kind of my bet on it too, in a roundabout way, that these guys, I mean, if you are God and you have a plan, And you are an entity that wants to do exactly what you just said and flow opposite of that plan, flow opposite of that way. I would think that anything that you do would have to be reactive instead of proactive. So if you're going to seek to change laws and times, it's because you want to manipulate this, maybe so that the original master plan can't come to fruition, or it manipulates time in a way that benefits you so that you have a little bit of leeway or whatever. I don't know. But regardless what it is, I mean, I think that you and I definitely agree that this is being pulled by, or the strings are being pulled by a spiritual realm, a spiritual entities, Elohim, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, it just makes total sense. We can see this from really, it all lines up with everything from the very beginning. Mm-hmm. God lines it up, sets a perfect world, go be fruitful, multiply. You can eat off this tree, but don't do this. So there's rules or regulations, things that were set up. And then you have this being, whatever it is, whether it's the first one, Satan, whatever it's going to be, comes, throws a wrinkle in it, and it sets the world on course where things just go south real quick. So we see this from the very beginning, that you have an angelic force who are bent on destruction and going totally against. So the end times, especially when you get towards this man of lawlessness, it really means someone, some being, some government who's going to do everything they can to not allow the God to finally take his rightful place. Mm-hmm. So they're trying to stop it. Again, it's like a big courtroom. That's how I imagine it. They're doing the court stuff, and you have folks on the defense and folks on the offense, that are presenting their case and throwing twists and turns into this thing. And we as humans, because we've gone through this before, I think the angelics, especially those going against God, when they're aware of the fact that us as humans will eventually judge them, well, they're not liking that whatsoever.
Right.
So this comes to this. Well, let's see if we can somehow mess God up. Mm-hmm. Let's see if we can change the laws or find a loophole in this covenant and this contract to see if we can squeeze through it and catch God off guard. Mm-hmm. So it's just like a court drama.
Right.
Because if Satan, the accuser, that's what his role is, what do you think he's always doing? Well, this is all he'd be doing. He'd be accusing everyone. Well, they're doing this, well, they're doing that. He's the accuser. That's what he does. Mm-hmm. And he would constantly be battering with other angelic beings, God and everything, going, well, you said this, and they're doing this, and he's accusing and slandering everything. It's his role.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, okay, you've got this guy in Daniel 7, and we're going to take the premise just for now that this is all the same guy. But you have this guy in Daniel 7 who is, he subdues 3 kings. He seeks to change the times, the laws, and things like that. Wear down the saints. And obviously this guy is up to the end, because then what Daniel says in chapter 7 is that just as you were talking about, the court comes into session, and now we're talking judgment. And in that,
yep,
his kingdom's taken away, and then the kingdom is given to the saints, which will be an everlasting kingdom. This is all in Daniel 7, an everlasting. So this guy's up to the end. For sure. Then you have in 2 Thessalonians, Paul talks about him a little bit. And he says, he opposes and exalts himself above every so-called God, object of worship, so that he takes his seat in the temple of God. not in a temple of a God, but the temple of the God, displaying himself as being God. The question I've always had about this is, I'm going, well, wait a minute. Number one, at that point, Jesus had already died and resurrected. Number one. Number two, the temple that was there was not necessarily destroyed yet, but it was on the verge of being destroyed. So now there brings about this whole, I mean, everybody talks about, well, this is why there's a third temple that has to be built. Well, wait a minute. If I take the premise of Jesus, then I have to say, Jesus said, destroy this temple and in 3 days I'll rebuild it. And then goes on to say, well, he was talking about his body. Well, in Revelations, and you referred to this last week in Revelation 3, talked about becoming pillars in the temple of God. Well, if Jesus is the temple, then what are we? If we're pillars in that temple, we're just a part of that temple. So if Jesus is the temple of God, and I'm going to take that approach, here's a man who opposes and exalts himself above every so-called God or object of worship so that he takes his seat in a temple of God, displaying himself as being God. So this is where an idea of an antichrist could come in, but also the idea of going, okay, well, here's a guy who really wants to get in. He wants to deceive God's people into believing something that isn't true. He wants to get in and he wants to manipulate things so that, because it does say right before that an apostasy comes first. Well, what's an apostasy? It's where a bunch of people leave the church, or they leave the faith, or they walk away from the true knowledge of God. That's the apostasy. It's apostasia is the word, but it's a falling away of people. But it says it comes first. The man of lawlessness is revealed. This guy who seeks to make himself above every God and take his seat in the temple of God. So this guy, we think there has to be a third temple built so that he takes his seat on a throne. I'm not so sure about that. I'm thinking that this is more of a spiritual thing, that this is and I'm taking that approach. It's my own belief. Study what you will on it, and that would be great. I mean, I'm not saying that your belief is wrong, whoever is listening. I'm just saying that in my studies that this is kind of where I've leaned towards, is that this is more of a spiritual matter, that this guy he didn't want to go sit in the temple and sit on a throne. There was never a throne in the temple except for the Ark of the Covenant. But never. Even the Jewish people knew that. I mean, there's not a throne. Like King David never went into the temple, sat on his throne in the temple of God. It never happened.
No.
So the only throne that was there was the mercy seat on the Ark of the Covenant. But I'm not convinced that this is a third temple has to be built, that this is a spiritual matter, because it starts off, there's these spiritual beings that are pulling the strings behind the scenes that you can't see. You and I can't see it, and it's going on. And so these guys are, I think that because it's a spiritual matter, he's sitting in the temple of God is a sort of a symbolic reference of he's wanting to overcome or overtake Christianity or God's people. That's his goal. Not saying that he will, but that's his goal.
Yeah. I was kind of, as you're going through that, my brain goes back in time. Again, when I studied this, is if you take it literal that it is an actual person, you can go back in time when I forget which king it was who captured Israel or captured Jerusalem, walked into the temple and sacrificed pigs to it. Okay, that was, that's an abomination right there. So was it Nebuchadnezzar? Oh, I forget who it is.
That went in and did that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
Like,
Antiochus. It
Yeah,
fits in the
walked in.
Maccabees things.
Yeah, and they captured Jerusalem, and to make his point, to say, well, let's see where your God is. They go in there and do the abomination of sacrificing pigs
Yeah.
in the Holy of Holies. Okay, then I heard, well, that's it. That's your abomination of desolation. It could be. Again, we come down to our age when Jesus was here and the Romans finally destroyed the temple,
Right.
wiped it off. And from that point on, Israel has been scattered. At that point on, after that, Israel was scattered. They just were. And I think it was in 1952 is when they finally came back. I think
48 or something.
48, yeah, when they finally came back and Israel was reset. But again, then I heard that abomination of desolation is the Dome of the Rock. And so, yeah, it could be a literal thing and it could be a spiritual thing. The apostasy. Well, that's happened a lot throughout the ages. This is where, again, my brain goes, we love putting things on a timetable that makes, this is A, B, C, and D. And we've gone through this before. This one doesn't really, there probably isn't A, B, C, and D by God's standards. It's just so vast. And a lot of things happen in the midst of this that trying to line it all up perfectly for us, it's hard to do. So yes, it very well could be a spiritual dimension there that it's referring to instead of a physical.
Well, it's not,
which would also make sense.
Yeah. And I'm not, for anybody listening, I'm not saying that there's not some sort of physical manifestation, but what I'm saying is to sort of look beyond just the physical and understand that the warfare that you're fighting or the warfare that people are fighting is, just like Paul said in Ephesians, it's spiritual principalities. And if it's spiritual principalities, then you have to look beyond just the physical. You have to.
And you do. We just want this to make total sense.
Right.
And that's why over the years, I banged my head against this for 5-6 years, trying to figure it out. Just when I thought I had to figure it out, yeah, this is it. Then I went, So even now, it's like when you told me this, I went, oh, Lord.
Right.
Said, oh, my gosh. How am I going to, I'm entering back in that realm again because we want it to be this perfect piece of pie that makes sense. All the ingredients are there, and that's it. Well, so can it be a person? Yes. Does it lend itself to be more of a spiritual realm? Yes.
Yeah.
It's just
So I believe, this is my personal belief, and again, this is just based on my own study. It's not gospel truth, but a lot of times you and I sort of, I don't want to say we beat around the bush, but we stop short of really just telling what we believe, just because we're more interested in putting the information out and trying to get people to stretch their minds and thoughts. And I mean, some of the stuff we put out there, what we believe, yeah, absolutely. But I mean, for the most part, we like to just, here's the information. This is why we lean this way, maybe, but stretch yourself and think outside the box. But here's my,
yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, here's my core belief in this is that it starts off as a spiritual thing. I mean, he says in Thessalonians, he says that the guy's been at work he's already been at work. He said the mystery of lawlessness is already at work, and only he who now restrains it will do so until he's taken out of the way. And that's a whole nother podcast of what that means.
Yeah.
But because it's already been at work. This is the core of my belief, is that it starts off as a spiritual thing, and throughout the generations, it's almost like these beings, or this being, or Satan, has been for generations trying to wear down people, spiritually speaking, wear down people, so that at some point down the road, there are going to be a group of people or a person who is so, I mean, as far as godliness or knowledge of God or whatever, it ain't there. And there's nothing spiritually. So they've been so spiritually worn down that they've become extremely vulnerable. And now because it is a chess game. I mean, in that regard, it would be a chess game. You're going, I'm going to wear these people down. I'm going to the point that they have no power or resource. Then when they're vulnerable, completely exposed, I'll enter in and I'll do what I'm going to do. So the mystery of lawlessness has already been at work. Will there be a person? Yeah, I think there will be a manifestation of a person or a government or whatever. You'll see it. But whatever you can, whatever you want to call it, it's being set up. But I guess my belief is that it has to start off as a spiritual thing, because like you and I have said earlier, somebody's pulling the strings. And so in that, it has to start off as a spiritual thing, and it can manifest into a physical. I think we'll have to see it at some point. We'll have to see some sort of manifestation of what's been going on. So there I am. I'm going, okay, it could funnel down to this one person who just, whether Satan enters him or what, he's going, I'm the guy. I'm the stuff. I'm the cheese.
Yeah, and I've heard that bent, and it could very well be. Yeah. I mean, I know the church overall, especially those who take kind of a literal view of the end times, they'll point out, what is it? Revelation 13, 11, where they have this beast out of the earth, and they'll say, this is that antichrist. You know, he has signs, he has wonders, he has power. He even is, I guess, you know, he's wounded, but he heals up. So, yeah. Again, is this all imagery or is this real? You know, even when it comes down to, oh my gosh, all throughout my life, the number 666. Oh, it's going to be this, it's going to be that. Oh, this is what it means. And oh my Lord, people are trying forever. They're trying to figure out this number. It's like, just give it up. I mean, we're going to know when it finally happens, we're going to get whatever this number is. People have tried forever, you know, taking people's names and warping it and to make it fit this 666. We try to get everything to fit into our understanding. It's very tough to do that. And so this man or woman or nation or whatever, to make him fit perfectly into what we think is very hard to do. I mean, this could be a decade-long thing that takes place. This could be one or two events. You and I both heard all throughout the history, certain evil people pop up and they're going, aha, yeah, this is it. Now, Hitler was the big one in our generation.
Right.
I'm sure when World War II popped up and Hitler and all his, I'm sure there were a ton of churches going, yep, this is it right here. He's the Antichrist. He's trying to set himself up. Well, that didn't work out so well. So, yeah, we want it to be a person. I do believe I don't know. That's where I'm at. I'm going, I believe I don't know.
Right. And I think that's fair to go, you know what, because you've seen evil rise up, just like you said, you've seen evil rise up, pop up here and there. You've seen I am certain that the Christians thought in first century, Christians thought Nero's it. I mean, look at what this guy's doing.
Yeah.
So they had to have been going 100% this guy's, oh, here it is. Everything that was written about it, here it is. I'm also certain that, if you're a 20th century Jew going through the Holocaust, you're probably thinking, this guy is the guy that Daniel's talking about.
This is it. Yes.
Yeah. This guy's the guy that he's exalting himself and he's doing whatever he wants. He's wearing down the saints. He's annihilating people. This guy's it. And then when they don't see a Messiah come, then they're going, what's going on here? This guy wasn't it. Or maybe it's multiple people over the course of many generations. You don't know. But you brought up Revelation 13, which kind of, I want to get into the mark of the beast just a little bit here, because along with the man of lawlessness comes that mark. And you talked about 666 and everything else. So real quick, I'll go into that and read a little bit, just dive into that whole thing. So he's talking about another beast that comes out of the earth. This is apart from the beast that's been wounded and healed and whatever. And it looks like a lamb, speaks like a dragon. He exercises all authority of the first beast in his presence, makes the earth and those dwell in it to worship the first beast, whose fatal wound was healed. This guy performs great signs, so that even makes fire come down out of heaven to the earth and in the presence of men. He deceives those who dwell on the earth because of the signs which was given to him to perform. In the presence of the beast, telling those who dwell on the earth to make an image to the beast who had the wound of the sword and has come to life. It was given to him to give breath to his image, so that the image of the beast would even speak and cause as many as do not worship the beast to be killed. Causes all great and small or rich and poor, and the free men and the slaves to be given a mark on their right hand and their forehead. He provides that no one will be able to buy or sell except the one who has the mark, either the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him understand and calculate the number of the beast, the number of a man, and his number is 666. Now, pause for a moment and go, every man who has been labeled the man of lawlessness, they have been able to say, however they want to do it, they've been able to say, well, his name equals 666.
Yes.
Through gematria or numerology or whatever. But wow. I mean, talk about taking people and maneuvering that around and manipulating and making it look how you want. But this mark that he gives, and it says it's on the right hand of the forehead. So my question would be, and I don't expect you to have an answer, but my question would be, if it's spiritual people, entities pulling the strings from the get-go, then is the mark really a physical mark or is it a spiritual mark?
I'm going to take twofold on this one. Answer one thing before I answer the 666. Because again, now pulling these verses out, my brain goes back to when I began teaching this, back when I taught this, especially this verse. You have the triune God somehow, cannot figure it out, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, yet one God. How he's able to do that, I have no idea. How he's able to, whether consciously separate, move, strange, how he's able to take his form and use it to do whatever. But it's a triune understanding of this concept of Yahweh. He's able to do that. When I taught this verse here, I said it would make sense that if you have the triune universal God, Yahweh, who's able to do what he's able to do, especially when it says Satan can also masquerade as an angel of light, wouldn't the unholy angels come to an understanding going, well, if the triune thing works for God, let's do it. Because this verse here lends itself to a point of going, there's an unholy trinity popping up.
Right.
One who's wounded and is healed. Then you have this other one who pops up, we want you to worship us. Then you have this other thing popping up where it casts, it's almost like this AI thing popping up that talks and does whatever. And people are mesmerized. Why? Well, whether it's true or not, it's almost like they're trying to mimic there's a triune God. Let's see if we can create something in our realm, and it's an unholy trinity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I said, it offers a thought. When I came down to the 666, numerals mean a lot of stuff. From my understanding is 666, according to God and Scripture, is the ultimate and unholy numbers. Mm-hmm. 7 is complete. He completed the earth in 7 days, rested on the seventh day. So you see all the way through 7, 12, 24. Mm-hmm. It's all these different numbers God uses. 6 has always been a number used to, in a sense, it's incomplete. It's not a holy number. So you put 6, 6, 6, 3 sixes. Mm-hmm. For me, it just meant it wasn't like you're going to get stamped. Again, could be wrong. I don't think it's a stamp number. Mm-hmm. It just means that number 6. It's ultimate in on the holiness. It's an alternate in the altercation of this is way against God. This is opposite of God. Antichrist. Opposite of God. Mm-hmm. 777 would be a perfect number. Ultimately. Well, you got 3 sixes. So it would just mean whatever this beast is, whatever this thing that comes out, person, angelic being, government, whatever it is, it's the ultimate in a slap in God's face.
Yes.
And that's how I've always taught it. I don't think, I don't think it's going to be a physical mark as we see it right here. Again, we've heard, they're going to put chips in us and that's going to be it. Credit cards, that's going to be it. I've heard this, oh my gosh, for my whole life. It's this. And it never turns out to be that.
Right. Well, and here's the other thing. But I'm going to pause there and I'm going to, I guess I'm going to call people out on this one because if you're going, well, this chip is going to get implanted into my body and it's going to have, my information in it, my credit card, my bank account, blah, blah, blah. And that is the mark of the beast. What is the difference between that chip being implanted into your body versus you carrying that chip in your wallet? So very freely and willingly, by the way.
Yeah.
Just because it's not implanted into your flesh and blood, which, by the way, is perishable and will be perishable. What makes the difference between that and you saying, well, I'll just carry it right here in my wallet or my purse or whatever, and it'll be okay because it's not my body? No, it's the same thing.
It is.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
Right. So here I'm going, okay, technology, I get it. Technology can be used for good. It can be used for evil, so on and so forth. But I'm going, okay, it's on the right hand and it's on the forehead. There is imagery there, and you find it back even in Deuteronomy. If what you're saying is true, where these people are going, hey, if we're gonna do this, and if we're gonna manipulate this contract thing or this triune thing seems to work out for God, then we're going to try this thing too and make this thing work for us. But there are some other elements to this contract that God uses that maybe we ought to sort of inherit for our own contract. So when you go back to Deuteronomy 6, and it's 6 starts with verse 4, I mean, the Jewish people know it as the Shema. It's Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And he says, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. These words which I am commanding you today shall be in your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your sons, and you shall talk with them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, and when you rise up. You shall bind them as a sign on your head, and they shall be frontals on your forehead. Okay, there's the one. You shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Then shall come the Lord your God brings you into the land which he swore to your fathers. He goes on and on and on. But he's talking about bind them to your hand first, and then bind them to the frontals on your forehead second. So in other words, is this, the question I have then is, are these literal bindings? And some Jewish people say yes. That's why they got the phylactery things, one on their hand and one on their forehead.
Yeah, they take it literal.
But is it a literal binding? Or is it a spiritual? Was Moses going, no. In every thought and deed, you shall operate in these commands. With every thought and deed that you do, it should be under the umbrella of these commands.
Yeah, and I lend more that it's a spiritual mark. That God knows. I think if you're going to be, I think, and people do, they align themselves in certain things. I mean, we can see with the election that just happened, how people align themselves with Democrat, Republican. And you can see that going through. That's just how we're wired up. And I believe that is a spiritual decision, that it's written spiritually on a person. I'm never going to say that mark would never be a physical, as it may be. At that point, I'll go, okay, it is physical. And at that point, you have to make a choice. Am I going to allow that to happen, or am I going to stay focused on God and what he wants? So, but I think it's spiritual, just because of it's the ultimate and unholy numbers. And it flows with that whole passage there about, these different angelic, beings trying to, in a sense, mimic God and what he does. It's the ultimate, ultimate mark against God.
Right.
So I believe it's spiritual.
So what I'm going with this, where I'm going with this is, if worshiping the Lord, it's not binding the things necessarily in a physical sense to your body, although if that's what it takes, fine. Not necessarily doing that, but worship is a very spiritual thing. I mean, God is a very spiritual being, then your worship is a very spiritual thing. So it goes on in Revelation 13. It says that he's able to kill people who do not worship the beast. So this idea of worshiping the beast is also a very spiritual thing. And I don't think people get that either. It's like, because I think a lot of people who are Christian even have been afraid, Lord, I don't want to take the mark. I don't want to. Well, here's the thing. It's not, if you're looking at it from purely as a physical standpoint, then you've missed the whole boat. You missed the point. It's, where is your heart? Where is your mind? What are all those things tuned to? Because if they're not tuned to God, then you have done what the angelic beings are doing. You're going, I'm not following that pathway. I'm going to follow this pathway over here, or do this pathway over here. So it becomes a very spiritual thing. But even going back to this whole contractual thing is that, look, if this element is in the triune contract of God, and he's going, look, he's love the Lord your God and do all that, bind it to your forehead, bind it to your right hand. Well, then what's the opposite going to be? Well, worship the beast, bind it to your forehead, bind it to your right hand. And it becomes this very spiritual. Will there be a physical mark? Maybe. I don't know. That's the part that I don't care about so much, because I think it starts once again spiritual. And we could go down. There's so much other stuff you could talk about. People have correlated the mark that God gave Cain in Genesis to the mark of the beast. I don't get that. Fine, whatever. I've studied that a little bit, and I'm going, I don't see that. The mark that God gave Cain was a protective mark. I'm not going for mark of the beast on that one. However,
No, I wouldn't either.
Yeah. So I'm going down that road. I'm going, I don't see that. But and there's so many other elements that people, well, it could be this, it could be that, it could be that. But ultimately, in the study, I mean, you have to take the idea. This man of lawlessness is first and foremost a spiritual being. Somebody spiritual is pulling the strings, which means the mark is first and foremost a spiritual thing. And you get so concerned about, well, I don't want to take the mark or whatever, but okay. Kind of all the more reason to go back and dive deeper into all of this stuff and stretch your faith a little bit, because the more you dive in and the more you grow in that, the more rooted and whatever that you become. And you're not worrying about stuff like that. This just becomes topic of conversation, and it's fun to dive into then. It's not so much, is Donald Trump the antichrist or is Vladimir Putin the end of America, yes. Or whatever. Well, wait a minute. Back up. Let's dive deeper into that.
Yeah, breathe a little bit. As I walk down this path, and again, this has been a recent unfolding of mine, and you and I will get into this when it comes towards contracts and covenants. One of them was the Tower of Babel. Mm-hmm. And if you read that context there, God tells Noah after the flood, go be fruitful and multiply. Well, they don't. They all collect and they all focus around one little area. And in a sense, they build this temple to worship, in a sense, to say, we want God at our bidding. In a sense, we're going to put this place here. God's going to come where we want him to come to. And God goes, I don't think so. So what does he do? Everyone has the same tongue. Everyone speaks the same language. So what does God do? Let's just mess them up. So he gives them all these different languages, and they all can't talk to each other. So God, in a sense, comes down and realigns it so we don't. In our age, this is where I'm wondering is we're almost to the point now, especially as I said before, I'm not saying the internet is evil. It is not. It's not the mark of the beast, the internet. But it allows us to almost become the Tower of Babel again. As everyone becomes united and everyone begins to understand each other, wouldn't the angelic folks, the Elohims that are against God, wouldn't they begin to say, we can repeat this again? So we can grow our numbers, we can grow our strength, we can get these folks all back together so they begin to understand each other. And now let's, in a sense, pick those pieces back up that happened at Babel. Mm-hmm. Let's just repeat it again. Yeah. And I can see that happen. Is it happening right now? Sure. Is it the pinnacle? No, not yet. No. Is Donald Trump? No, at least not that I know of. I mean, we'll find out here in the next 4 years. He's the I don't believe so. I think it's God's patient. He's in control. He's allowed things to happen due to things beyond our understanding. Mm-hmm. But I can see this other force going, okay, with Jesus rising from the dead, they now begin to realize, crap. God not only put, him here and began a movement, he broke the bounds of death. Mm-hmm. And now we begin to see, crap, I'm going to lose my leadership. Can I stop that from happening? That's where I see all of Daniel, Revelation, all these prophetic things coming out, is how do we stop? how do we stop God from moving forward with every move he makes, we're 5 moves behind him. How do we stop this?
Right.
And so you see all these little things they're trying to do to stop it. Well, that's where it comes down to. Is I think it's just decade after decade after decade. But I think it would make sense. Let's just reestablish the Tower of Babel again. Mm-hmm. Draw everyone together, get everyone under one roof, and we're pretty much there. Everyone understands each other. Mm-hmm. So it's brewing. I guess I did before. 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 10,000 years, how long it ever takes. The time's going to come where, the pot boils over. Mm-hmm. We're right now I think we're just in the simmer factor. I think it's simmering. We're not boiling yet, but it's simmering. Mm-hmm. And people are alive. I mean, I really do. I mean, I watch the movements at least in America and the fight, this especially with the election, everything just happened. I'm not, this woke movement is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. But it's a small movement. Will it continue? I don't know. But it gives you this dimension of where we can go as humans if our thoughts get kind of whacked up. Sorry. And I'm not belating people. I'm just saying this movement shows how far we can go. And this is just a small little mark mm-hmm. in the history of time. That's what I think. For me, this is a spiritual realm. It makes total sense because this is how, it makes sense because this is how humans would do it. Mm-hmm. It's the art of war. If you read the book Art of War, it shows how to maneuver against, your adversary does this, we'll do this. Attack, counterattack, all this works. So they're trying to figure out, how do we stop God? How do we end it? How do we thwart how do we stop his movement forward? And so you see this all the way through the end time letters. Mm-hmm. They keep trying. That didn't work. All right, let's try this. Dang it, that didn't work. All right, well, let's imitate God now. He's triune. Let's pretend we're triune. Well, that didn't work either. Let's do a mark, whether it's physical or spiritual. Crap, that didn't work either. So they're doing everything they can to stop the movement of God, and God keeps going. He's so patient, he's going, all right, go ahead. All right. And he's not telling, when Jesus came, he didn't divulge all the information to the angelic folks that were against him. Here's what I'm doing.
Right.
He didn't lay out his battle plan. Jesus dies, rises from the grave, and they go, crap.
Yeah. Well, what was the what was the show way back? I don't remember, where the evil guy, he would always say what he's going to do, and you're kind of looking at him like, why? What are you thinking? Why did you just? What was that show?
Blurted out.
Yeah, he was blurted out. Was it Gadget or some sort of cartoon like that? I don't remember now.
I don't know. Yeah.
It's actually when you read Sherlock Holmes, you ever read those?
I did a long time ago, yeah.
Moriarty, that character, he would never cease to just shut up. He couldn't shut up. He was going, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to show you this, and I'm going to...
the problem is coming out, and I think whoever is running... We always think it's Satan, and maybe it is. Maybe it is the accuser, who's kind of the arrowhead on this one. I don't know, mm-hmm. But you have authority figures that are doing whatever they can to blatantly go against what God. And I'm with God. Just goes, okay, you guys are showing your hand. I'm not stupid. But yeah, I think they're so blatant about it, and I think they're so full of ego mm-hmm. that they're pompous about it, and they're showing every tactic they're doing, and God goes, really, guys? you
Right.
know? Or plus you have to realize, if God did create him, and God's the only, the only Elohim, the king of all Elohims, if he is the only God that can see past, present, and future, they can't. They just, they just, they keep moving, and maybe they keep forgetting, oh yeah, he can kind of see the possibilities of what's going to happen down the road. But I think there's just so full of arrogance. Kind of Jesus kind of lays that out. He's a liar from the beginning. He's just arrogant. This principality is just arrogant. Right. He really believes, whoever it is, this creature, this being really believes, I can win. And so you see this through the end time scriptures. He does everything he can, along with the other principalities. We can win this. So they would align the human race with this exact same thing. Let's draw them all together, get them all refocused. We're all one again. We have this remnant who's not. Let's kill them. Yeah.
Well, I got to tell you've got my brain going now about this whole Tower of Babel thing. That's an interesting take that I hadn't really considered that would be a thing. Is let's try to rebuild this. I mean, maybe not in a ziggurat, whatever, but let's just try to rebuild this from a different standpoint and see how we can unite people. And
yeah, I mean, it struck me again. This has been about a 3-month process. You and I have been discussing that for years. Mm-hmm. This has been from a gentleman, and I encourage listeners, if they're listening to this, I don't agree with a single thing that Michael Heiser says. Mm-hmm. He passed away last year, but he threw a lot of things my way, and a lot of other folks who studied and tried to figure things out. That I went, that rekindled some of my belief systems. Going, all right, this makes total sense through Scripture. Mm-hmm. That it wasn't just, demons and all this stuff. There are angelics, angelic. He says they're called Elohims. They are. They're Elohim. They're beyond. They aren't physical. They're spirits that haven't aligned themselves with God. Well, that's what happened in the Tower of Babel. Let's get them all together. Let's draw them all in one. We can take over this real quick. And God goes, nah, I don't. Because it even says, let's just confuse them so they have no idea what they're doing. No one can communicate. And we're going to make them. So they're gathered in one area. They become one, and they are not following what I told them to do. Go populate the earth. Fine, we'll make them move on, because none of them can understand what the other person's talking about. And so, again, it comes down to, if you never read the book Art of War, read it, because it is spectacular on how, battles and all that stuff. And God is the king of art of war. He's the best. He is the ultimate tactician, and right. His patience is beyond our understanding. Mm-hmm. That he can be patient with a jerk like me, who still questions him all the time.
Amen, brother.
He goes, that's right. He does. I'm sure he goes, Dan, what the heck, dude? All right, I'll let you try to figure that out. That's fine.
Sometimes, though, I think that I would think that he has to look down and go, that's pretty cool that he's thinking like that, or that's pretty cool that he's stretching his brain that way. He's not necessarily right, but he's
he's way off on that far in there. But I think that's where a lot of Christians have stopped their movement, instead of stretching themselves and saying, I'm going to go into areas I'm uncomfortable with, because maybe I don't know, mm-hmm. And push themselves beyond that. Because even this realm here of the man of lawlessness, the mark, Are we ever going to figure it out? I don't know. At this point, I don't see it. I don't understand it. We can see maybe glimpses of it, but in the end, we'll finally go, oh, we had it right, or, oh, this was totally wrong. But people need to stretch themselves. I'm with you. It's like, the faith grows by stretching it. You have to stretch your faith. And to say, I don't know, or God, you're making me, I'm ticked. I don't get it, or even yelling at him. It's all right. God has a big heart. He doesn't care.
Yeah.
It's when you stop. He does. He has big shoulders, and he'll allow you to go down that path. It's just, he'll walk with you.
Right.
And he may be saying, you're going down the wrong path. I'll still stick with you, but dude, you're going down the wrong path. But I'll try to guide you back. That's where.
You know what it's going to be? It's going to be us. It's going to be us caught up in the air with the rapture people going, whoa, 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 whoa. Hey, did anybody see the mark? What the heck was it? I missed it.
Oh, what the? I want to see how it turns out. Oh, come on. Yes. It's like, dang it. Yes. Can someone stick around there dead? Go back down there and see what it is. Yes. Get back down there. Crap, I can't believe we missed it. We're being pulled up. Or right when it's going to happen, we're all taken up. Taken up. Oh, come on. I was just there getting ready to see it. Oh, jeez. Yeah. Yes. And you get up there and God's going to go, yeah, see, I do believe God's a big jokester. I think he's a God of laughter.
Sure.
Along with, he is a king, a warrior king. We always have him so serious. There's got to be a good comical part of him too that makes you just smile.
Absolutely.
I mean, I get that from folks who study the life after death. It's amazing. I'm taking a little view off, a little focus off this, but it's amazing when they come back and they talk to these folks who have had life after death. They all come back saying, I'm not afraid of death anymore.
Yeah.
Love, grace, peace, joy. So I think, along with all this, looks awful. When you get to the end times, it seems awful depressing. Mm-hmm. But the end result is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness.
Right.
So it's going to be an awesome place. It's just right now. Life is good. I mean, really, my life's good. Your life's good. My wife deals with me very well. She hasn't kicked me out of the house yet. There's a lot of good things, but there's also a lot of evil. Mm-hmm. So, again, it's just, I don't have all the answers, neither do you.
Thanks for reminding me.
Along with this. I know. I do that all the time. You do it to me, too. So, I'm hoping tonight, this is one of those, it's not a big, I used to study a lot, it's not a big one, but hopefully folks go, I never thought of that, or I have an idea. We keep saying, please let us know.
Right.
What you guys think when it comes towards this beast, this man of lawlessness, the mark.
Yep.
See what they have to say.
Absolutely. All right, sir. Thank you for coming on and doing this one.
Yes, I'm looking forward to the next one. Again, we'll figure out. We've thrown out different topics, but I'm looking forward to the next one coming up. So
me too. All right. Until next time. All right. Thank you for tuning in today. If you haven't gone there yet, go to expressocoffeetalk.com. That's XPRESSO coffeetalk.com. There you'll be able to donate. You'll be able to check out what's going on in my world. Check back often as new things come about. You can even listen to the podcast there if you don't have your own podcast app on your phone. A great place to hang out, expressocoffeetalk.com. Thanks again for tuning in, and this has been Espresso Coffee Talk.